Lee, your iPad. Your iPad. Hmm? Are you watching it?
Okay.
Good.
I guess
You're just trying to get the agenda.
I hit the wrong button.
Oh, okay.
All right, time is 6 o'clock and call this meeting to order. First things first, we have approval of the agenda. So the recommendation is that the agenda for the council meeting of June 16th, 2025 be approved as presented. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Kirkby, Deputy Mayor Campbell. All in favor? Carried. Shouldn't be any questions there. Any declaration of interest tonight? Councillor Young?
Declare the removal of properties from the heritage interest value property listing. It's item number 9.1 on the agenda. I have a pecuniary interest, I reside in one of the units at 262, 270 Gibble Street West, and I am a direct relative of the owner.
Okay. Thank you. Any other? Great, thank you, everyone. All right, today we have a special presentation today. So I'd like to take a moment to recognize an outstanding member of our community. Someone whose actions earlier this year truly embody the spirit of service, courage, and care that define the town of Prescott. On the morning of the James Street fire, Dana Fitzgerald acted calmly, bravely, and with community safety at the front of her mind. Tonight, on behalf of council and all the residents of the town of Prescott, it is my honor to present this scroll of recognition to Dana Fitzgerald. This scroll is a small token of our appreciation, recognizing not just what you did that day, but the spirit of community and compassion that you represent. So if you'd like the picture. Thank you. Everything you did. Can we all get in the picture? Come on in here. Get us all. Oh.
Ready?
Good. It's a big crowd here tonight.
All scatter in the morning.
Well, we always offer them to stay.
It's good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thanks. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you.
Get her to come every time. Could have a crowd.
That's the fun part of our meetings. You're welcome to stay if you want, or you can, now's a good time. There is no better time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Say, Mike. Thank you.
Oh, my friends.
Oh,
Sort of went out like that.
oh, that's okay. Used to that. Thank you. What'd you say this time? All right, no delegations tonight. So we'll go through the minutes of the previous council meeting, dated June 2nd, that the council minutes dated June 2nd be accepted as presented. Can I get a mover and seconder? Councillor Ray Young, Councillor Leanne Burton. Any questions, concerns about the minutes? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. No communications or petitions tonight. There is a council information package under the consent reports. And the motion is that all items listed under the consent report section of the agenda, save and accept item number 10 be accepted as presented. Can I get a mover and seconder for that? Counselor Burton and Counselor Young, Ray Young. All right, any other things we want to take out of the council information package? We've got number 10. We've got that one.
Oh, thank you.
I'm sorry, which one is number 10?
The last one, Bill 5. Okay. All right then, seeing none, all in favor? Carried, thank you. All right, we have a committee report tonight. 9.1 is removal of, oh, for this one, we're gonna have you, Trace, are you gonna sit over there?
Sure.
That's good. Counselor Young, I mean. So before we get to the report, I'm just gonna read the motion. The council approved the Prescott Heritage Committee's recommendation to remove the following properties from the heritage interest and value properties listing. 100 to 120 King Street, 692 King Street, and the block of 262, 270, 272 Dibble Street. Okay, who's speaking to that? Or is any? Okay, thank you, Chloe.
Second.
Oh, sorry. Yes, mover and seconder, Councilor Kirkby, Deputy Mayor Campbell. There you go.
Thank you, Mayor Shanker. Through you to council, the Heritage Advisory Committee has been reviewing properties under the listing of heritage interest and value properties within the town of Prescott. Earlier in May, these 3 properties were brought back for a supplementary discussion at the committee level and were recommended to be removed from the property listing as they didn't meet the threshold under the toolkit to have the minimum number of points per se to be recognized for heritage qualities. There are a number of properties that the Heritage Committee is looking through and making recommendations on. However, these 3 have been recommended for removal as they do not meet that minimum threshold based on their analysis.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Ms. Chloe? All right, so we have a mover and a seconder. And since there's no further questions, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Carrie, thank you. Welcome back. Okay, moving right along. The mayor's report. So it's only been 2 weeks, but it feels like it's been longer than that because there's a lot going on. First things first, it is Councillor Kirkby's birthday today, 29 years old. Looks pretty good for 29. 2 weeks ago, I had Joint Services Committee. Always an interesting. Then we followed that with a PAC meeting that some of us were attended on. I attended a cadets open house. They had a celebration at the high school. I also attended a celebration for Nilu Bat. It was her celebration of life. They held that at Merck Hall. The row had a ball hockey tournament. Looked like it was very well attended. Lots of kids running around, and I saw that, so that was very good. I went to that. I want to mention a couple of interesting things. Our firefighters went to Merrickville this weekend for the firefighter games. We hosted that last year. I think last year we finished 3rd. This year they finished 2nd. So very good. They lost. They were number 1 team was Mississippi Mills, who they say is full of 20-year-olds. So we'll catch up to them one of these days. So that was very good for them. Rib Fest. We have a TV star over here, Dana. We had the CTV News from Ottawa came down and did a little story on Prescott. So you know what? That's great news. Like when we're in the real media, not just social media, but the TV media, that's a good sign. And we had great weather, great turnout. The ribs were fantastic. The entertainment was really good on Saturday when I was there. So all the different, like the whole place was alive. I talked to Juan, the head of the parks, and he was very excited and very happy about the whole weekend. So that was very, very good. So congrats Dana and Justin for putting on a great first year in the Rib Fest. I just want to let you all know that as you probably do know, that I had a meeting with Mayor Tooley about 10 days ago, just an informal meeting. We just had a chat, just talking about, what we're doing, what they're doing. They're a brand new council, so a lot of, he's a first term mayor. It was very positive. He was a little anxious that I was going to have a room full of media. So he called me the day of because he had heard through the grapevine that we were having some of his constituents there and said, "Are you having a meeting with Prescott?" And it was very good, very positive. What I'd like to do, and we're both talking to our councils, is maybe get both councils together. Either we host something or they host something, and just make nice, make friends and talk about joint projects, or even just promoting joint projects, not joint projects, but promoting like our Canada Day. They're promoting their Seaway Festival. That's one of the big events that they have. And so just ideas, and just leading by example. I saw a lot of very positive points made on social media. You're always going to get a few people that are going to make it more political than it is, but so be it. We get a lot of positive out of it. It's good for everybody. That you hear the same odd story about maybe not being so friendly, but I haven't experienced that, and no one close to me that travels a lot has experienced that. So we'll see. We can just lead by example. So having said, I think that's all I've got. I probably missed a few things, but we'll start on this side today. Councillor Christie.
Perfect. So from the operations and just my last few weeks here, the Rib Fest was great. I also attended. Great turnout. Good food. I had the Hog Fathers, the Dawn, which was the one thing I heard from people, I guess, that go to Brockville and Cornwall, is Prescott was cheaper. So that's one thing. I did see all kinds of families from soccer and hockey, so there was a good amount of families down there that I saw. I thought King Street, which was cleaned up by operations prior to the event, looked great. That whole area looked really good, so it was good to see that. Lots of signage out and about for overflow parking, the trolley stops. There was enough signage out there, and obviously people found where the event was because every time I was there, it was busy. Sarah Spencer Park been reopened. They were able to get the railing that was needed. Public Works staff completed traffic book number 7 training. So staying on par and getting training completed. The pool and splash pad passed the annual pool inspection. And that's all really I have. I was pretty worried. Except the row ball hockey tournament. I was there for about 8 hours of refereeing, and I didn't walk too far the next day. So I'm starting to feel my age.
How many kids would have participated?
We had 92 kids.
Oh, that's great. Very nice. Good stuff. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Campbell?
Through you, Mayor Shankar. So I attended the fire admin meeting on June 3rd. They're continuously doing their training. They're planning to do some hose handling training in early July. They continuously inspect new builds in Prescott. For example, they inspected the pop-ups and various other units that are going in for the electrical and making sure that's all up to code. They attended career day at South Grenville District High School. They're going to Wellington School for a visit with a truck on June 26th from 10:30 to 11:30 in the morning, and they're going to be participating in the Canada Day Parade. June 9th, they did truck training on their Monday night training. They did spring cleaning, so they did all the trucks and the driveways around the fire hall. And that's it for them. It's great they came second. I think we're more mature than
More experience.
Yeah. I attended Rib Fest on Saturday as part of the Aquatarium booth, and so I saw every kid because I was there for like 9 hours. But it was interesting as Councillor Kirkby said, the difference in there's families, there were seniors, everyone just out and about enjoying the music. And we had a couple of kids there that stayed for 6 hours at our booth.
Wow.
And I turned to the grandparents, I said, "You okay with this?" "Oh, yeah, it's a nice day." So they were watching the kids. So yeah, it was really great to see all the happenings. And I'm curious to know sometime how much money was raised for Big Brothers and Big Sisters.
Sure, we'll find out.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Burton.
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. Ribfest was huge hit. And the trolley guy, he was amazing. I heard lots of laughters when the trolley was going by. It was always packed. Few updates. The marina has started the marketing efforts. Our first video was sent out last week. We also have new, I'm going to say, Toodle bikes, and they can be rented by our residents or visitors. So you can rent those at the marina and explore our town. The pool schedule is out. Lots of things happening at the pool. Summer movie nights. Really trying to promote this. Our attendance has been a little bit low. And it's Friday nights here at Town Hall in the Great Room. And this Friday is Kung Fu Panda #4. Well, should be good. The summer lunch program has been launched and registrations are flowing in. And we were able to, very successful in getting all the weeks sponsored, which is really nice. You know, kudos to our staff and thank you to our sponsors. We have this website that I don't think too many people are, it's not a website, it's a link. The Recreational Culture Summer Lunch Program. You can look up how to register that to get cold lunches. But all sorts of different activities are on that website as well. The River Rec Room at Centennial Park is offering free daily activities and you can rent some equipment. We have a new rec summer programming brochure that's been distributed through town. South Grenville District High School, the art students are painting the concrete barriers down at Kelly Beach. We'll add some splash down there. And our second annual July 1st parade is coming up and we can meet at Centennial Park at 10. And you're gonna walk all the way down to the fort.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I'm driving the truck, I think.
Oh, yes. That's a long old haul, but you know, lots of great things happening and, you know, chiming to, you know, Prescott Recreational Culture, Facebook, it was Facebook. So lots of things happening.
Thank you,
Lots of good
Councillor.
things.
Thank you.
I was just wondering how many bikes we have. Two? I saw two in the rack when I went by and I wondered if there were more, that's all.
Yep. It's a start.
Yes, for sure.
Definitely a start.
Justin, you want to add something?
Yeah, if I may, Leanne, the link you talked about or
Yep.
Facebook page or whatever it is, would you be able to follow up with staff and see if they could share that with the local schools, or maybe they have, right, to include in their year-end letter that goes out to parents or even
Yep.
on the school website?
Yep, actually, we have shared our summer movie nights with schools and daycares.
Yep.
But yeah, definitely this Facebook link is, we should be splashing that all over town.
Yeah.
But and it's easy to follow and easy to look up, so.
Do we know off the top how many have registered yet?
We don't, but we are figuring for the cold lunch program, we're figuring it's 25 kids from the age of 4 to 18. No questions asked, you just ask for a cold lunch and they'll hand you a cold lunch. And it's actually posted, I did see somewhere posted recently on what each day is. Monday, it's a sandwich and you get a fruit, a vegetable, a juice box. Next day, you can get some milk with a sandwich, the main meal. Yeah,
Great. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Counselor Tracy Young?
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. I attended a Waterhouse meeting, so with reference to the cold lunch program, Monday to Thursday, the summer lunch program will be prepared there. There are 30 people leaving for the Serengeti Bush Camp in Toronto tomorrow. And along with their annual operating fund, they also received a special grant of $4,400, and they're planning a couple of bus trips with that money. They're looking forward to the aquafit and the pool opening, and lots of workshops are going on there. They're really enthusiastic there. It's so much fun to go there. They're just, we did, as Mayor Shankar said, we had a planning advisory committee meeting. We awarded 2 grants under the Heritage Conservation Area, and both with a view to preserving what is there already. And we approved an applicant for the Riverwalk Foot Care, a new foot care clinic at Parkville Place.
Mhm.
And I went to Rib Fest too, and it was amazing, and just another showcase event of how the town of Prescott supports third parties when they want to host an event here, and how supportive they are. And Dana and Justin worked so hard, as usual. So thank you to them, and it was great. And the trolley driver was amazing. Lots of smiles, young and old, and it was really cool. Anyways, thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Ray Young?
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. I did attend Rib Fest and enjoyed my feed of ribs and chicken. Very good. I have not had any meetings to attend in the last couple of weeks, but I have been talking to staff and getting up to date on a few projects that I knew were in the works, and I was getting information about those. And the last thing I want to mention is I'm looking forward to Sunday night, the opening of the Sunday concert series and the fabulous entertainment that we have.
Anyone?
Hiding herself back there in the gallery. So
6 o'clock or?
Price is right, eh?
I'm looking forward to that, Deborah.
We're asking for canned foods.
Okay,
We're under paying.
very good.
Good.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor McConnell?
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. Along with Counselor Kirkby, I was invited to a luncheon held by the family medical practice in Prescott here, where they introduced us to 2 young men who hope to be doctors that we're studying towards. This was kind of unusual because they have access to medical students through a couple of other sources, through Queen's and the universities. This is something a little different. And it comes through a rural program with the intention to try and persuade people who are going into the medical profession to locate in a rural area. So these 2 gentlemen were here for a week, and I had the good fortune to sit next to one of them. And we talked, and he was quite taken how friendly everybody was here. Everybody says hello. He said when I'm out walking, he walks a lot when he's here, and he was very happy with the town. And I mentioned some of the amenities that we have, and he perked right up when I said curling club.
Really?
So kudos to the health group for getting in on this, and nothing ventured, nothing gained. This past week, on behalf of the cemetery board, I attended 2 burials out at the cemetery. Both went smoothly. Unfortunately, while I was there, I discovered that we had some damage done in the cemetery. There are 8 tombstones that have been spray painted or tagged, if you will. The police have been notified. I haven't heard anything from the police. Matthew, if I may, have you heard anything back at all?
I haven't.
No, perhaps we should follow up with them on that. I've been looking on how to clean tombstones online for obvious reasons, and the sooner they're cleaned, the better. So I would like to make sure that the police have taken some pictures, looked, what have you. But Matt, if we could have the water tank that is normally placed at the cemetery placed and filled with water, because if it is a latex paint, then soap and water will clean most of it off, but obviously we need the water. Thank you. I also attended festivities out at Fort, and I was very taken with the organization that was involved. Parking was laid out, crossing guard. I had a couple of people comment on the fact that we had a crossing guard down there. So my compliments for staff on the job that they did on that. And I guess that's about all I have, Mayor Schenker.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Justin, did you want to bring up the Seniors Month?
Sure. Just want make note that this Thursday from 1 to 3 p.m. Mayfield Residence is hosting a celebration for Seniors Month, and it's open to all council. So I've already booked my spot, but if anybody else would like to go, I just thought I'd share that.
Thank you. All right, good. All right, thanks, everyone. We're going to move into our staff reports. Our first one is staff report 41-2025, the heritage designation of 425 Center Street and 490 Center Street. So the motion is that bylaw 29-2025 being a bylaw to designate the property known municipally as St. John's Evangelist Anglican Church, 490 Center Street, as being of cultural heritage value, and that bylaw 30-2025 being a bylaw to designate the property known municipally as St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church, 425 Center Street, as being cultural heritage value. Okay, probably not on this one, eh? No owner or agent for this? I'd say? No? Okay. So Chloe, I'm sorry, I gotta get a mover and seconder, Councillor Kirkby and Councillor Burton, thank you. And Chloe, then the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Schenker. We have the report number 2 on the heritage theme for this evening. I'll take council back to your meeting in February where this matter rose for the first time at this table, but it had subsequently risen a few times at the Heritage Committee, where the committee made a recommendation that these 2 churches would proceed under the designation for heritage cultural value within the town of Prescott. At February 3rd council meeting, council agreed with that recommendation from the Heritage Committee and gave staff direction to proceed with what's called the Notice of Intention to Designate. That is the first step formally to designate a property under the Heritage Act, and involves a variety of notices, and both published in the paper to the property owners and then to the Heritage Trust of Ontario. There is an appeal period for notices under that. There's 30 days. And there's a mechanism for it to re-rise to council. As you'll see, there's a flow chart within the council package tonight that kind of shows the different scenarios that can happen. This was published in the paper in the February 20th edition of the Beacon. And so our publishing date, because it's the last of the different subsequent notices, owners were mailed theirs following the council meeting as well as the Heritage Trust. But because the publication is the last of the dates, that's when the 30-day time frame starts for us for the appeal mechanisms. So 30 days after, we had not received any appeals or objections to these 2 applications or notices of intention under heritage designation. And as such, the bylaws are rising for council this evening for ratification. However, as per that flow chart, there is another appeal mechanism that starts. So if council were to choose to pass the bylaws this evening, they do not come into force and effect until 30 days after the decision is rendered, because there is another 30-day appeal clock for which an applicant or the owner could make an appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal, which would then take the decision or that appeal away from council to decide and would bring that to the Land Tribunal for their decision. So before you is the matter. I would note that we've received no objections and no appeals from the notices, and it's staff's recommendation to proceed with the designation and the passing of the bylaws, and as well to provide notice of such to the owners and to the Heritage Trust.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Preston. Any questions for Ms. Preston? Councillor McConnell?
Not a question, but a comment. Both Ray and I were members of the Heritage Committee when this first broached in the Heritage Committee. That's not the right word, but it's the only one I can think of. People were there from both churches, and there was no objections. They asked a couple questions, but they were both spoke favorably of it at the time.
Okay, any other questions? Concerns? All right, I'm going to take advantage of that, and we have a mover and seconder. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Carried, thank you. All right, next up is staff report 42-2025. Heritage designation of 305 Center Street, 388 Center Street, and 408 East Street. The motion is that staff be directed to give notice of council's intent to designate the following properties as being of cultural heritage value or interest pursuant to section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, RSO. So, you got a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Burton, moved by and seconded by Councillor McConnell.
Are we dealing with all three as a group?
So what we can do is, I know there was one here at 305 Center Street. We can defer that one if someone was here to want to talk about it. Do you want to talk about 305? No?
I'm not here on behalf of 305.
Okay.
That was the old surgery house. Kate Pat has asked me just for 408 East Street.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Ms. Preston, should we take out 305?
At present, the recommendation from staff is to proceed with the three. And if the discussion around the table warrants an amendment to the motion, then council may entertain that. Based on what I've heard, you have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation as presented. And council may choose to amend that further should you wish. Or if the mover and seconder wish to withdraw their movements, then that's also their right.
Right, Councilor.
At the Heritage Committee level, I did not vote for 388.
Okay,
I did vote for the other two, but Ms. Valentine, correct? At 388?
Yeah, I'm not here for. Yeah,
she's 408.
I'm 408.
Okay,
Oh, then.
all right.
Okay, so how about, we've got a mover and seconder. Let's have Ms. Preston tell us a bit more.
Okay.
Thank you.
Our third and final heritage report for this evening. I will once again turn council's memory back to the February 3rd meeting. Unfortunately, I was not with council at that time, so I will rely on the notes that I have access to and your collective memory on this. My understanding is that when these properties rose to the Heritage Committee, there was a bit of discussion around the table about whether all three of them were necessarily going to be recommended. Ultimately, the decision was to recommend all three to rise for council to make the designation or the determination of whether to proceed with the notice. As per my previous report, there's a few stages to this process. At present, we have not done anything with these properties. They have been reviewed by the Heritage Committee, and a recommendation is before you this evening for whether or not you wish to proceed with what's called a notice of intention to designate. That notice does not mean that you are designating it this evening, but it starts the formal process under the Heritage Act to commence the process. And it allows for the appeal mechanism should a property owner wish to do so, that formal process to appeal the decision. Ultimately, council can choose to accept the recommendation of the Heritage Committee. It can set aside the recommendation and remove the properties, or a further deferral may be done at this time. I will note that there is a bit of a timeline on the Heritage Act for the list of cultural properties that we are investigating. That timeline was extended from January 1st, 2026, which fast approached, and is now extended to January 1st, 2027. So we have built ourselves some time to deal with the remaining properties, but in full disclosure to council, there were approximately 36 properties, if I'm not mistaken, perhaps 30 on the list. And we're partway through that list and making our way through those that need to be gone through by the Heritage Committee, and council will see a number of them rise within the next few months as we make our way through drafting the Schedule Cs. Council will see attached to this report the three very distinct Schedule Cs for each of the properties, which designate the criteria and the specific attributes that are looking to designate. There are some misconceptions around heritage properties that the Heritage Committee is looking to undertake an educational opportunity with the community, including insurance brokers, real estate agents, and property owners within the community to do some myth busting per se on what that means when a property is designated. We also acknowledge as a Heritage Committee that there is a lot of work to do to amend and look at the original bylaws that were drafted for designation of some of the properties in Prescott to look at specific attributes that are looking to be recognized and protected from that heritage and cultural perspective. So there is sometimes a common misconception that it's everything and all encompassing of a property when that's not necessarily the case, and it is very case specific. So I provide that context for council this evening. Ultimately, the decision is yours, and I'm happy to take any questions, barring that I also was not present for some of the deliberations on the property. So I defer to my colleagues to assist in those as well.
Thank you, Ms. Preston. I'm going to just check council first, and then we'll also allow an opportunity for Ms. Sig to talk. So Councillor Kirkby?
I've been sick for a while.
Sorry, I remember. Councillor.
Through you, Mayor Shanker. Chloe, do you know of any feedback from the owners of these current spaces?
So my understanding is that of the three properties that were originally brought forward to the Heritage Committee and to council, 2 property owners participated at the time. However, the third property has changed ownership in the very recent past, and that property owner was not brought up to speed in the process of acquiring his property on where that designation process was. And so when we reached out as staff to the property owner as an FYI to say this was rising tonight, although not the formal appeal mechanism should that be the property owner's desire, the property owner was unaware in the acquisition of the property that was being undertaken or even reviewed. So in some cases, that property owner may or may not have an opinion, but we have not received that at this time. My understanding is that there was some unfavorable opinions from the other 2 property owners for designation, but I was not present for those.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kirkby. Any other member of council?
Through you,
Yep.
Mayor Shankar. Ms. Preston, are these properties had been designated culturally significant and we're keeping it going, or is it a brand new designation?
So these properties were not designated previously, but were provided to the municipality on the review list for one needing to require or to have a decision of council as to whether or not they should be designated or not. This was the list originally provided to the town based on an assessment. I'm not entirely familiar with how that list was originally generated, and perhaps my colleagues are aware then that can be provided. But that doesn't preclude other properties in town from being further designated. And it may be if the Heritage Committee desires, once through this list of properties, that they may look to other properties in town that were not originally provided on this list for other designations. So they were not previously designated. This would be a new designation.
And this designation has come from the provincial heritage? Maybe provincial? No.
Sorry, if I may, through you, Mr. Mayor. So a number of years ago, the Heritage Committee or previous Heritage Committees developed a list of properties of interest, and that's the ones that we're dealing with. And in previously, there was no rules around how long you could keep a property on the interest. And with the changing of the last couple of years and a number of legislative changes, they say now that you can only keep a property on the interest list for a maximum of 2 years, and you have to make a decision either to move it on to heritage designation or to drop it off the list. If you drop it off the list, it cannot be re-added to the list in the next 5 years. So that's really the process that we're going through now, is going through all of those listed properties, saying, should they move forward or should they be dropped from the list? And the three that you have before you this evening are part of the first and second batch that the Heritage Committee has gone through. The Heritage Act of Ontario kind of stipulates what municipalities can do in terms of heritage preservation. And really the last step in that is moving it to a heritage designation, which then helps protect specific aspects of the property for future generations. So really that's what we're talking about this evening. It's under the Ontario Heritage Act, and but it's decisions made locally, so at the municipal level.
So through Mayor Shankar, so when you say the Heritage Committee, that's a
Committee of Council.
But where did the list come? The province?
No. So a number of years ago, they went through, took a look at the properties of the town, and they either decided to designate them or just put them on a list of interest. And so
Who's they?
the Heritage Committee, the Prescott Heritage Committee. Yeah. So that list has just been sitting there for probably over a decade, and so now we actually have to do something with it.
Okay.
Okay. Councillor McConnell?
If I might throw in another sentence of clarity there. Former councillor Lossinger, who was on council in my second term, was also a member of the Historical Society and was council's designated person on the local Heritage Society. So right now, as Ray will attest as well, our local Heritage Committee, of which he and I were both a part, has this list that was formulated by the committee or committees over the past few terms. And as Matthew indicated, we have to work our way through it, or they have to work their way through it by the end of 2026 and either designate or drop it off. And my recollection of these three properties, which were brought forward when I was still a member of the committee, was that I don't believe we had any input from 305, which is the doctor's office. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. 388, the lady did come and make representation at the meeting and was not in favor of it. However, she had the complete wrong idea of what it meant. And I believe we were able to, I hope anyway, to convince her that just because it's designated does not mean you can't do modernization inside of the building. Unfortunately, I don't have any recollections of the last one, so it may have not, I may have not been there when that important.
There was no, at that time, there was no opposition to it. But is that the one that's changed hands, Deborah?
No.
No.
305.
305 has
Has
changed
changed
hands.
Yeah, and the people that did originally own it, like before this last owner, they had no interest and they were not residents of the rental property. So now the person that's actually purchased it as of recent is living there.
Okay,
Not sure I share, Councillor McConnell's optimism about changing the mind of the owner of 388. However, I'm prepared to, since you have already discussed this as a council, I'm not going to vote against allowing the procedure to move forward. There is still an opportunity down the road to vote against all of the addresses, as I understand it.
If council were to vote to proceed with the notice, there's still the bylaw to deal with, as well as if there were any formal appeals under the notice, then council acts as the appeal body for those individuals under the act for it to re-rise as well. So there potentially is a number of opportunities for this to rise depending on the circumstances that play out for the properties. And depending, for example, if there were appeals to one or none of the properties, then they may rise separately for determination under the as bylaws.
In my opinion, this procedure moves a lot better if the owner is in favor of the designation as opposed to an owner fighting the designation. So I will vote forward, moving it forward tonight.
before we vote on it, I just want to give Ms. Courier an opportunity to speak.
A cat owner of Colonel's Inn just asked me if I would just, if we had an opportunity to speak. I don't think she's necessarily, she's not super in favor of it. Just based on, I think, one of the criterias that were provided for her, what made that decision. But what she's asked is there a way to defer it? She's not saying absolutely no, hard no, but just to put her, I know it is a subject of property of interest. Can we defer her for like a year or 2 years at this point, just till she researches it? She's in Asia, she's in the process of trying to sell it as well. So I know she's been asked for a longer deferral. I see there's a 2-year limit before they make a decision if it's off the list, then it's off the list. Would there be that possibility of deferring that one property for a year till she can further and get her ducks in order?
I think, can we do that?
Council may
That's up to word of
defer,
council.
if that's your, that is the will of council. I will note that there is a deadline pending before that 2-year time, so that would not be an option, deferral.
But if for a year would be even somewhat favorable.
Did you say the drop dead deadline is January 2027?
January 1st, 2027.
Right. So,
Year and a half.
so a year and a half.
Barring in mind that there are notice periods and provisions, so really council's drop dead date to make some determinations on those lists is probably 4 months before that date. So we're looking at September 1st, 2026.
So-
Defer until September 1st, 2020.
I don't mind deferring it, but maybe not cutting it that close. Maybe like
August
a year.
31st.
That sounds like a realtor, right?
I mean, the other thing that council should consider through you, Mayor Shankar, is that the 2026 council schedule has not been published. So picking a specific date would probably not be in council's best interest without knowing what days you will be meeting. The last thing council would seek to do is to bind your own hands in a process that is meant for your deliberation and your decision making on what's best for the cultural preservation of the town as a whole.
Yeah.
If all 3 properties are designated or moved to the next stage as presented tonight, there's a 30-day appeal, is that correct?
That's correct.
How long has this property been in discussion?
From what I can see, many months.
4 months.
It's been the same owner, I assume?
Yeah.
Right?
Out of the country, yeah.
Yeah.
We just asked, even a year, like I was saying, she's defer it. We're not, I don't think she wants to be in opposition of council in any way, but just he's
Mhm.
asking for the opportunity to defer.
And yeah, which is fair, but at the same time, I think this discussion's been going on for probably a year, right?
No,
So,
I don't believe so. I don't think so.
Well, at the Heritage Committee.
right, at the Heritage Committee,
Yeah.
was there an opportunity at the Heritage Committee for the owner to speak?
My understanding is that there were 2 opportunities.
Am I
Yeah.
able to make a comment?
Sure.
Yeah, as the owner of 408 East Street, I am out of the country and have been. I had the opportunity of being present at one meeting and having a Zoom with the other. During those meetings, it was represented by the committee and the chair that the value of the property of increasing with a heritage designation and not being impacted, the resale value and the opportunity for the business to operate as it is. That has been my express concern. And as it is of the value, I've sought an appraiser and asked that specific question around heritage status. Deborah Lynn Courier had represented me and will represent me in terms of future sale. That the value of a resale is impacted by the heritage designation as not being beneficial. It may be beneficial to the community or to, I'll say the Heritage Committee from that value proposition. However, from an owner that operates the property as a business, it does have an impact, and that's where my primary concern is. So I did ask Deborah Lynn to be present this evening as my representative because I wasn't sure I was going to be able to stay on just of time zone. But the ask, and appreciating the time frame and the consideration that's already been there and going forward would be if it is the possibility to defer the property. And I recognized, I believe if I'm heard correctly, you have this 2-year window in a process. And if it was agreed by the council and the community not to move it forward, then it would be on hold for 5 years. I would ask that I have as long an opportunity to hold that property, not with a designation. I'm also mindful and would honor what the committee chooses. But as a property owner, I also do not feel it has been implicitly clear in terms of the limitations of the designation of the heritage property. I understand it's on the exterior and from any view from the road. The property that I own has a view from every road in every portion. So I would hope that everybody on the council recognizes that 408 East Street and the Colonel's Inn has maintained itself and has actually improved in the last 10 years under my ownership to maintain its, I'll say, pride of status. So that is my ask of the committee. And of asking Deborah Lynn to be present. It really was with the view of it isn't hearsay in terms of value and valuation, that from an expert in the field, and I'll just designate that as somebody that I trust, as well as an appraiser, that the considerations of value are at the heart of where my concern is.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Scott.
Thank you.
More question through you. Is it still functioning as a business currently?
It is. I'm not actively there at all times, but we do have bookings
Still
that do it.
accepting bookings and stuff like that?
Yes.
Yep.
I need to be present when they are occurring, so I've had bookings in each year. Whether it's been weddings or celebration of life, 90th birthday parties and others, it's been more used for larger functions, 30 plus guests staying at a time typically.
Thank you. Councilor McConnell?
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. I agree with Councillor Ray on here. It's always preferable to have the owner of a property in agreement with designation. However, I think we need to be cognizant here of the idea of the Heritage Committee and designating properties. It's not to make the property owner happy. It's protect the heritage of our community to protect the heritage buildings in our community, those buildings that we deem to be essential to what makes Prescott, Prescott. And it is clear that when we designate something, we have a reason for doing so. If you look at the 388 Center Street, for example, the entire rear section of that is not recommended for designation. It's the front part of the building. Your building is on a corner, as is 388. But your building is in, I would say, excellent shape and has been as long as I've lived here. We have as an exact opposite to that example, though, 440 Dibble Street West, which is a couple doors west of here, next to the funeral home, which also used to be in excellent condition, has gone through several owners, and now is at a state where it is probably going to have to be torn down, which is a shame, quite frankly. So I think it's important to note that the whole idea behind this is to not make property owners happy. It's to ensure the longevity of designated properties or properties that we are going to designate. As far as these three go, personally, I believe they're all worthy of dedication. And if we vote in favor of this tonight, we are not dedicating them as designate them, dedicating, you're right. It puts us one step farther down the road. And the owner of 305 in particular, if I was going to give somebody an extra couple of months, it would be 305, because it is a new purchaser here and is not aware of what the process is. 40, and my glasses, 409, 408 has been under discussion since I was on the Heritage Committee board, and that hasn't been for most of a year now. So I would be in favor of going ahead, at least with this stage of these three.
Okay, thank you, Councilor McConnell. Councilor Young, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. I'm a new member on the Heritage Committee, and I can say that the new owner at 305 Center hasn't had an opportunity to attend a committee meeting. So they are just a brand new purchaser. And from what I understand, it took them by surprise that this was in the works. They weren't told about it from prior owners. So I would ask that we defer 305 Center. I can say, I'm being new on the Heritage Committee, that there's a lot of thoughtful research done before they make their recommendation. And I think, as our clerk referred to, there's some misunderstandings perhaps of what the consequence, I'll use that word, to being designated heritage. And I think some people feel that, I can say that the Heritage Committee, they're not trying to make a hardship out of it, and they will work with you. For example, I think there was one issue about windows, and the property owner was wondering if the windows could be replaced with modern windows. Yes, I believe the modern windows can be used. They only asked that they remain in the same place that they were. So if it's a 60-40 window, please replace it with a 60-40, but you can use modern windows. So they're not trying to place any financial burden or hardship on the property owner. I just think.
Thank you, Councilor Young. So, I'm going to check the will of council here. Do we want to amend this motion and seek a deferral for 305 and 408? Or do you want to, what's the will of council? So if that's a motion, you know, I mean, 388 seems good, but 305 is not here. 408's here. Oh, sorry, Kay, did you want to add something quick?
Yeah, and I was just gonna make a comment, and it's, while I expressed the concerns of the value, I'm also have very real concerns of the ongoing operating costs. And if I just reference my own insurance, in the last 2 years, it is more than doubled. So we're paying, as a bed and breakfast, we're paying in excess of 20,000 US for property insurance. And with a heritage designation, in initial conversations with the insurance company, the designation will have an impact to the operating costs. So I'm looking at this as and I can say as a business person, as an owner of a property, and I absolutely value the integrity of the heritage status and the age of the property, and I would hope that you see pride of ownership in what we focused on keeping the inn in the last 10 years and upgrading. But underlying all of this, while there's an element of home value, there is a sale value, and then there's the ongoing operating costs, whether it's under myself or anybody in the future. And it is not something that I believe that the council has truly dug into of the impact to an owner.
Thank you, Kay. All right, so what if we amend to remove 305 and 408 for a deferral of like 6 months? Would that work for council? We're not saying no, we're just giving Deborah Lynn a chance to sell it and 305 a chance to get up to date. Councilor McConnell?
If Ms. Courier sells it, then we're back in the same position that we are with 305, which could put it off for another.
That's why I said 6 months, not right to the
Yeah, I know
September.
what you mean. It's, like I said, I would be inclined to move this along tonight, and then before it comes back, or when it comes back to council, if we decide that we want to put it off. In the meantime, the whole process goes ahead. The gentleman at 305 apparently is aware now, and he should be able to put in some comments, explain to him exactly what's involved, appear before us if he so desires, and we take his comments into consideration. But I don't see the point of delaying this portion because it's not the done deal yet. It's just moving it along.
I think the 6 months would just give us some time, give us some time to gather information to really fully present the impact of this designation on this establishment. Just moving forward with what we're doing to give us time to provide some documentation back to you on how it's impacting.
Matthew?
So just, I don't think the Heritage Act necessarily envisions decisions being made on value, on property value or resale value, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
It should be solely based on the merits of the preservation of the property.
May I ask Matthew a question?
Sure.
Through you,
Yep.
Mayor Schenker. Matthew, going on the last statement you said, right, we're to make decisions based on the merits of the heritage information that's presented in front of us, but we're also to take into consideration the owner's thoughts on that designation.
On the heritage value of it.
Right. So I guess I'll put it bluntly is if we move to the next stage and the current owner does not want that heritage designation, and there's a bunch of reasons for that, then the will of council could be to remove that designation. It wouldn't come back for 5 years. Is that correct?
So once it's designated, period. But
We vote on that stage coming. There's another stage to this.
and so, yeah, so maybe Chloe can just identify. So eventually this ends up at the Ontario Land Tribunal.
Yep.
And they would deal with it based in terms of the Heritage Act and the preservation of of whatever being preserved as opposed to things outside the act.
Correct. So through you, Mayor Shankar, to council, as I said, this is the first formal stage of council's intention or not to proceed with a designation. If notice is provided, then there is a 30-day period from the last of the publication. So as I said, mentioned, usually the paper is the last of the circulations to happen. So 30 days after the publication in the paper is the appeal period. Council acts as the initial appeal body to the decision. So if an applicant or an owner wishes to appeal that notice or make a plea to council not to designate, then there is that opportunity for them to do so formally at a public meeting where it's recorded that their comments are received. Council at that stage has the opportunity to decide to designate or not designate. If council decides to not designate, then the property is removed from the list and it cannot be re-added to the list for a 5-year period as per CIO Armstrong. If council proceeds to designate the property, another 30-day appeal period is provided. However, in that appeal process, council is not the appeal body. The Ontario Land Tribunal is the appeal body. And ultimately the decision will be upheld or die with them. But there are costs to going through that appeal mechanism as opposed to, so council will have another opportunity to make the decision as you did with the 2 church properties this evening. They had gone through the NOID process or the notice of intention to designate and then re-rose for final designation of the bylaw. And as I said, those don't come into force and effect until that 30-day appeal period has passed. So there is another opportunity, whether that is as an appeal body to the notice or when the matter re-rises for the designation bylaw to be considered.
Thank you. Gotcha.
Okay, Councillor Young.
I'll just, a little bit of history. A designation might cover the interior, perhaps the dining room or whatever, as part of the designation process, which cannot be altered. We had a house, wanted to improve the width of the stairwell and tear out the existing stairs and put in stairs that were up to code. That was fine. They went through the process and they did it. Maybe the best example of a building in town would be the Crane House, which was designated. And the town received a demolition request to tear it down. And the town said, no, it's designated. You cannot tear that property down. That hung down. As a result, eventually, the town has a beautiful building there. Apartments for, I think, or whatever it is, as opposed to an empty lot. So that's the other side of designation, but unfortunately, insurance is one of the big expenses involved with designation, because you're going to insure that property to be brought back to the standard that it is on the interior, correct? I think so, anyway. So the the cost of putting in a heritage kitchen would be different than putting in a new kitchen.
Okay.
So I think that's actually one of the misnomers, is that if something is destroyed in a fire, that sort of thing, they're not required to replicate what was there.
So, but you can choose to.
You can choose
if
to,
you want to pay
100%.
that insurance policy.
It's not a requirement of being designated.
Right.
So blaming it on a designation isn't necessarily fair, because And really what drives insurance more than anything is the age of a home. And heritage homes tend to be of a greater age just by the very
And size and everything, yeah.
And so really, I think that tends to be more, but, you know, to your point, I think that's definitely one of the misnomers is that you have to replicate what was there and that sort of thing, and you don't, so.
Okay. 1 second, Chloe, was that it?
My comment was mirroring CAO Armstrong's.
Councilor McConnell?
Thank you, Mayor Shanker. Just to elaborate on what Ray was talking about, as far as Crane House goes and the fact that it was requested to be demolished and we as a council did not allow it to happen. We did allow the builder to demolish the rear portion of that building. And if you look at that rear portion today, it looks virtually identical to what was there before, but it's of modern materials and it was built to be useful as an apartment with a little bit higher ceilings than what was there before. So councils can work with people who have designated properties to maintain the appearance of the historical aspect without actually having to go back in this case and reconstruct the thing with stone, which is what it was. So there's give and take there, and we are not unreasonable.
Okay, so we're at sorry? So we have a motion on the table for all three. I did try and throw out there about deferring too, but I don't know if I got much traction on that. Did I or did I not? No. So I think what we'll do, I mean, there is a whole appeal process. I'm just gonna go with the original motion and we'll see if that goes through. So I'm gonna call that question. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. Against?
I still have a burning question.
Which might.
Are you for or against it? We've already done all the questions, Mary.
Okay.
For?
Mhm.
All right.
I'm for too.
So it carries. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Deb. Thank you, Kay. All right, moving on, staff report 43-2025 Grenville OPP Detachment Board 2 renaming. So the motion is that council endorse renaming of the Grenville OPP Detachment Board 2, renaming to the South Grenville OPP Detachment Board. And that bylaw 31-2025 being a bylaw to adopt the name change of the South Grenville OPP Detachment Board be read and passed, signed by the clerk and sealed by the seal of corporation. Can I get a mover and seconder for this? Councilor Kirkby, Councilor Burton, Chloe, you want to speak to this? All right.
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. Through you to council. Before you is a report summarizing the decision that was made at the Grenville, oh, sorry. Too many devices going on. I apologize.
It's okay.
Here we go. Summarizing the decision that was made to make an amendment to the name of the Grenville OPP Detachment Board. As council may or may not recall, when the Solicitor General was making the plan for Grenville, there was a decision rendered to have two boards for Grenville, one encompassing the north that had North Grenville and Merrickville-Wolford, and then another board representing the south, which had Prescott, Augusta, and Edwardsburg Cardinal. In their abundance of creativity, the Solicitor General named them respectively Grenville 1 and Grenville 2. Which produced some challenges for the board when they went to acquire things like insurance, because inevitably both boards had very similar names, which made it very difficult in that process to acquire insurance and to open their respective requirements for things like bank accounts and their identification as the board. So the Grenville OPP Detachment Board 2 would like endorsement from our respective councils to have the name changed to the South Grenville Detachment Board. And there is also reference in council's appointment bylaw as Mayor Shankar sits as council's representative along with the other two mayors from Augusta and Everett Cardinal. The bylaw is presented for you to amend that bylaw as well as to ratify the name change. So that is the consideration for council this evening to hopefully clear up any misconceptions between 1 and 2.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions about that? Just changing of the name. All right, all in favor? Carried, thank you. All right, next up is staff report 44-2025, the South Grenville District High School Real World Learning Project. The motion is that council endorse and approve the proposed partnership between the South Grenville District High School and the town of Prescott for the Real World Learning Project, including the installation at the Elaine Chartrand Community Center in 2025. Mover and seconder, Councillor Kirkby, Deputy Mayor Campbell. Matthew, you have this?
Very much, Mr. Mayor. So this is a follow-up from the delegation that we received on June 2nd. And really, Samantha was able to reach out to that class, talk about a little bit about it. They provided a sample of what they're trying to do. And really, they're looking to put up about 20 posters along the walking track, highlighting some of the notable individuals that have been involved in sports in Prescott, as well as kind of a storybook area right by the Mini Sticks area. So really a great opportunity to really show what Prescott has done over the years and to highlight to young people and people of all ages of what you can aspire to become when you come from a small town and that sort of thing. So really that's the concept behind it. It does align with one of our priorities was expanding recreation and tourism opportunities. And really their goal is to allow for less screen time, more learning, that type of thing. So it seems to be a really good fit with what the other initiatives that we have going on. And there really is no financial cost to the town to do this. I think it's a great way to start building along that history of sports and recreation in Prescott and telling that story.
Yes. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Armstrong? We had a real good presentation from them, and there's a nice example of Elaine Chartrand in the package there. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. All right. 3 more to go. Staff report 45-2025 waste collection price increase. Motion is that council direct staff to amend the waste collection agreement with Limerick Environmental Services Limited to reflect an increase in the rate per household pickup to $5 effective July 1st, 2025, and that council approve an increase of 25 cents per waste tag bag to offset a portion of the increased waste collection cost effective July 1st, 2025. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Tracy Young and Councillor Leanne Burton. Matt Locke, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. Something totally unrelated to heritage would be waste collection. So the current contract we have with Limerick started in February 2021.
Thank God.
The final 1-year extension is available in February of 2026. So this contract could run until February 27. So Limerick are proposing an increase in the household rate collected per month. It's currently $3.44. They're seeking an increase to $5. This is an atypical increase within the contract. Past increases within the contract have typically been CPI annually. However, they're citing that losing both this recycling contract and others in the region have increased their cost of operating this garbage collection contract because the overall volume of waste that they pick up has been greatly reduced. Our current annual budget for collection and disposal is $242,000. The town collects about $195,000 in bag tags. So there's a net cost to the town of about $48,000 to operate waste collection and disposal currently. The increased rate to go to $5 per household would increase the annual costs by about $40,000. The proposed rate change is for July 1st. So for 2025, that increase would be about $22,000 for the remainder of the year. So staff is proposing two methods to cover that additional $22,000. One is to increase the bag tags by 25 cents per tag, so they would go to $2.25. This would keep us within the average cost within the region, which range between $1.60 and $2.75 for Leeds and Grenville communities with curbside collection. And then we are proposing to fund the remaining shortfall using the available budget in the $39,500 unallocated reserve funding that was approved as part of the 2025 budget. Limerick also noted that some municipalities have implemented bag limits for collection. This wouldn't decrease the household rate, but the goal of something like that would be to reduce the overall volume because the town does pay the tipping fees for every bag that goes to the dump. So you try and cut down on the total amount collected. The other thing they note that they've done in some municipalities is impose a mandatory clear bag usage. And so in this case, if there are recyclable materials visible within the garbage bag or hazardous materials, the garbage collectors wouldn't collect it, they leave it curbside. And so again, it wouldn't reduce the household rate, but it's to try and make sure that things that aren't in the garbage are ending up in the appropriate place. So the overall expected financial impact of this additional cost is $22,223 in 2025. The increase in the bag tag cost would generate approximately an additional $10,000 in revenue for 2025, which would leave an additional little over $12,000, which we're proposing to cover using reserve allocation. So I'm happy to answer any questions related to the increase.
Thank you, Mr. Locke. Councillor.
Mayor Shankar, I'm in favor of raising it to the 225 and we'll leave it at that, not limiting bags. If I was going to go that route, I would charge extra for an additional bag, but I think as of now, the 225 makes the most sense. And I think the money that we're talking that it would generate is based on 6 months, or you said 5 months really, from July to December. Six. So we would collect, at the end of the day, if this ran the whole year, we'd be around $20,000 extra. But that 25 cents, I think it's fair. I think when we went outside of Leeds and Grenville, there's $3.50. Some of them bag prices that we looked at last year, bag tags were pretty high. Just to note that the 3 individuals that work for Limerick are all Prescott residents.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, Councillor Young and then Councillor McConnell.
I just need help with the math, I'm sorry. The extra cost is $40,000. The extra revenue from the 25 cents tag is $10,000. And why is the shortfall 39,000?
So if I could so we've given the total increase of what it would be in an annual year, but then also what will occur from July 1st onwards.
Right.
So the $40-some thousand is if you took that $5 rate across the entire year. So it's about $22,000 remaining in 2025. There's also reference to a $39,500 reserve allocation. So that's not the amount we're short by. That's just the amount available in a separate reserve fee.
Gotcha.
So we're seeking to use approximately $12,000. Really, it's the net of the $22,000 less the additional bag tag.
I understand now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McConnell.
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. A couple of things. I was kind of confused when I read this because it seems in one respect, they are telling us that they need an increase in per bag cost or total cost, whatever way you want to look at it, because they're not getting enough garbage from us anymore. they've lost the recycling, and I'm referring to that as garbage as well. However, they had the opportunity to bid on the recycling, did they not, Matthew?
So that's.
And did they?
And so, when Circular Materials put out that contract, they put it for all of Eastern Ontario, from Cornwall all the way up to, I believe it was, past Belleville. And so only really big, and they didn't do it by community. So only really big providers could bid on that project essentially. So it was well beyond anything that they could support because they had to do every single one of those communities.
I see. Okay, that wasn't clear. All right, in that case, I'll let my other question go. Thank you. I would be in favor then of what Justin indicated.
Councillor Tracy Young?
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. I have to get used to that.
I know. Me too.
And I think that, you know, I feel too that we should be increasing at this time, but it's also important to note that the contract will come up again February 1st. So I'm sure before that time, there may be other options available to us. So this can kind of bridge the gap until that time comes. And then I think it's really interesting about the two components, how there's the collection and then the actual disposal. So I don't know if there's any more education that we can provide. I don't know, is there any food recyclers left? Did we sell all of them? I don't know.
No, so we have sold all, yes.
Oh, we have, okay, because I was gonna say if we hadn't, maybe we could bring that up again too, just as public information, but I found that really interesting. The whole disposal aspect of it and how we could maybe plan ahead for that, like as Matt said in his report. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Councillor Campbell?
Through you, Mayor Shankar, to Matt, is there any way if we don't raise the fees now, but raise them January 1st, that there's enough in that reserve to pay for the 6 months upcoming?
Yeah, so the reserve fund has $39,500 available in it, and the expected cost is a little over $22,000. So hypothetically, there is enough in that reserve to fund the increase.
Okay. My concern is we did raise them just last year, and we even raised them more than what we thought. We thought, well, you know, for contingency. So that's my concern, is that people are gonna say, well, what are we paying our taxes for if we keep having to raise money on garbage bags?
All right. Okay, so, well, we do have a motion on the table. So I'm just gonna call the question then. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, carries. All right, staff report 46-2025 wastewater treatment plant and services expansion. Detailed design RFP. Motion is that council award RFP 04-2025 for the detailed design and contract administration of the wastewater treatment plant and services expansion to J.L. Richards and Associates Limited at a total tendered amount of $2,825,650 plus applicable taxes. Can I get a mover and seconders for discussion? Councillor Kirkby, Deputy Mayor Campbell, Mr. Locke, this floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. So in 2024, the town of Prescott, in a shared application with Augusta Township and the Township of Edwardsburg Cardinal, received funding through Ontario's Housing Enabled Water Systems Funding, which I'll refer to as HUSEF. That's the acronym they're using. So the project was approved for $23,928,000 in grant funding, which totals 73% of the total project budget of $32,778,000. So this project includes a number of components, including the expansion of our wastewater plant, the upsizing of sanitary pumping stations, as well as the big one of delivering water and sewer into Augusta Township out to Merwin Lane. So the first phase of that project is to complete the detailed design drawings and complete a tender package that can then go out for construction. So the town of Prescott administered this RFP process, which closed on June 9th. So the total budget for this scope of the project was $3,028,000. And so we ended up receiving 2 tenders as part of the process, one from J.L. Richards and one from EBB Engineering. So in addition to total tender price, we also asked qualified firms to provide a project schedule, a communication plan for interacting with the 3 municipalities, background on similar completed projects, identification of key project personnel, along with some other requirements. In our funding agreement, there's a noted deadline of March 2028 to complete all aspects of the project, which is a very aggressive timeline. This was identified in the transfer payment agreement, and so contingent on the funding is completing by that date. So as such, we're requiring phase 1 be completed by February of 2026. This allows us to tender immediately and then target construction in the spring of next year. This is to try and allow as close to 2 years as possible to complete that construction. So it'll allow them to phase it, looking at our local market, understanding what can be completed at the same time, and what trades are available locally, just trying to give us the best shot as possible of completing by that March of 2028 date. So when we look at the tender results, J.L. Richards was the low bidder by about $150,000. But additionally, they also noted a completion date of February 2026 and provided a project schedule about how to complete by that date. EDB, our other bidder, indicated a completion of June 2026. With that deadline, we would be pushing our tender date later and then pushing our construction date later. So it would give us less time to complete by the March of 2028 deadline. So digging into J.L. Richards, they have significant experience with municipal wastewater treatment plant expansions, as well as sanitary pumping stations. They've done a lot of work within Eastern Ontario recently, citing recently completed projects in North Dundas, Quinte West, Brighton, and Kingston. So we reviewed the applications from the RFP with staff from Augusta and Edwardsburg Cardinal. All parties have agreed with the recommendations to award the contract for design and contract admin to J.L. Richards. As an alternative, council could decide not to award the tender. However, at this time, it would put us in jeopardy of not meeting the timelines associated with the project. The total cost is $2,825,650. When we break this down in terms of effort on the project, this is essentially the equivalent hours of 8.5 full-time technical staff working on that project from July until February. So put in those terms, it's well beyond the scope and technical expertise of what the staff of the 3 municipalities would be able to contribute to a project like this. The total budget is a little over $3 million for this phase. So we did fall within the available budget, and as such, we're recommending to award to J.L. Richards at this time. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Locke. Any questions? Start with Councilor McConnell.
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. It's pretty clear, the first part of that, the $1.45 million, what it's for. The 1.38 million plus applicable taxes is pretty sketchy. And can you give us a little better explanation of what that entails, please?
Yes, so the second component of that, the $1.378 million is for contract administration, which is full-time on a project this complex. And so essentially what that is once we've completed the construction tendering, they will be managing the project. So they will have full-time staff during the 2 years of construction. So they are responsible for delivering all the payment certificates and measuring of all of the quantities during construction. So similar to how East Street is currently functioning on our complete rebuild jobs, you have somebody from the contracting team that's actually responsible for managing the project on behalf of the 3 municipalities during construction. So fortunately, I don't have the RFP in front of me, or I could provide additional of what's included in the contract administration phase, but functionally it's the day-to-day management of the project during the 2-year construction process.
Okay, well, that was reasonably well explained. I don't have any problem with that. It did beg another question though, but it seems to have vacated my mind when I was listening to your answer, so I'll let go. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Anyone else? Councilor Wright?
Matthew, Richard involved in the last one? I don't think they were
I
they?
don't believe that,
No.
I believe that was WSP.
Okay, and do they have an office in Brockville?
I don't believe so. I believe they're close. So we're kind of between two offices in Ottawa and Kingston.
Okay,
But they do have a number of kind of staff that live relatively close, so that allows them to be on site.
so in simple terms, they're going to have staff on the ground for 2 years, right? Watching that, certain size stone was requested or demanded for the construction, and that's what we received.
That's correct.
Yeah, good.
You had a fault, you remember your question?
Yeah, my brain went back in gear, Mayor Shankar. Given the volatility of trade right now and given the complexity, this isn't just a matter of laying a bunch of pipe in the ground. There is pumping stations that are going to be built from scratch or rebuilt. And I find it hard to believe that some of that stuff is not going to be coming from the US. If we find in the course of this construction that duties on this stuff have put it considerably higher than the person who has received the tender is comfortable with or can cover, are they going to be coming back to us looking for additional funds, or are we covered with this thing?
So for what we're awarding today, it's all technical services, and so we don't expect that there'll be any impact for this first phase, which will for the first 6 months. However, that's a real concern as we move into construction. We actually had a very productive meeting with the staff from J.L. Richards, and one of the things they noted is they went through our cost estimate, which was provided as part of the grant application, and compared it to their own recent projects. And one of the things we specifically asked about long lead time items because of tariffs or other manufacturing issues. And what they said was because of the tariffs, they have noted that certain specialized pumps and things like that are currently being sourced from Europe rather than from the States. And so they said that if the price is better, they've been bringing them over. We tend to basically add about a month to the lead time to come over on a boat. But they have noted that it has not caused big spikes in price or big delays in the process. The one thing they did note when they looked through our total cost, they thought that $32 million number was reasonably accurate. They said it was a little high on some things, a little low on other things. And one of the specific items they noted are the 2 new sanitary pumping stations that will be in Augusta. They thought we were somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million low in terms of our cost estimate specific to those. And so, again, when it comes to trying to limit the impact of tariffs and duties, we'll work with J.L. Richards to specifically build that fixed price into the construction tender. So any of those required pieces of specialized equipment would be something that you have to include in terms of your tender package, with the intention of once we get that contract back, we're holding you to all those prices for the 2-year construction period. That would certainly be the intention of the town as we move forward.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. McConnell. Just one question I have, Matt. So, I mean, the biggest difference between, other than the price, between EVB and J.L. Richards was the detailed design phase being completed by February, right? Which gets into our timeline, having to get it done by March of 28th, I think you said, March 28th. So is there, and with JL saying they can do it by February and EVB saying they couldn't do it till June, are we gonna put any type of clause in there to say, okay, we're pretty much awarding this tender to you because you said you can get it done by February?
So the one, that's part of my project schedule, was a key deliverable in the process. And so we have established critical deadlines as part of the project. And so I believe it's a 30% and 90%. of the design. So they have to hit those timelines by a certain day and present it to the 3 municipalities. And any missed deadline along the way prompts a mandatory meeting where they have to meet with the 3 municipalities to explain why they're behind and what steps they're going to take to get back on track. And so there aren't specific penalties built into the contract. In Ontario, you can only assign penalties if there's a specific loss of revenue as a result of this deadline. Which I don't believe this contract specifically would meet that criteria. So we have established a set of crucial deadlines. Any missed deadline prompts an automatic meeting with the hope that we can get them back on track. Now, JL Richards is a 500+ person company, and so they do have a lot of resources available to throw extra people at the project if they do fall behind.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Anyone, no one else? So we have the motion on the table. We have a mover and seconder. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And last report is staff report 47-2025, a financial update. And it's just for information, so no mover, no seconder. Matthew, it's all yours.
Mr. Mayor, so just looking through where we are at the end of 5 months, interim property taxes were due on March 31st. The second and final billing will be due August 31st. So what you're seeing is basically half the years that has been billed so far. The other portion that is a large amount that we receive, in particular through the administrative revenue side, is the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund, which is received in January, April, July, and October. So already, but in May, you're seeing half of the revenue for that. So when I take a look at some of the other areas, from the revenue side, there's protective services. Most of that fees coming in the second half of the year, as well as transportation revenue. That's largely the Ontario Community Infrastructure Funding. They haven't completed the review of our submission for 2025. Once they do, then the revenue will start flowing. Kathleen said on the expense side, we aren't going, and we just talked about this at the last meeting, will be our repaving, which will then be closer to the end of summer or early fall. So that will line up fairly well. When we take a look at the overall revenue perspective, we don't see that there's any major variances at this point in the year that would affect the total budget by year end. And on the expenses side, we're doing very well. We're under budget in all of the areas with the exception of economic development. Or in terms of planning and development, and that's because the economic development corridor will pay their fee all at one time. And so it's been paid for the year, and then we'll even itself back out and catch up with the budget. So as I mentioned, again, no significant variances we're expecting on the expense side either. So, and I actually looked at last year's report and were very similar to last year. So that's no major concerns at this time.
Any questions for Mr. Armstrong? Thank you, Mr. Armstrong. Good job. All right, no resolutions tonight, no bylaws, no new business, no.
Excuse me, point of order.
Yes.
New business is a question, not a statement. And should be
There was
treated
none
as
there.
such.
Okay, but there was none presented.
If you take a look at our procedural bylaw, Mayor Shankar, I'm quoting here exactly what it says under new business. It says, will be introduced in the following order. Number one, motions of which prior notice was given, which is exactly what you're referring to, so you are correct there. Number two, items to be introduced and referred to administration for reports. Doesn't say anything about prior notice for those things. Number three, a matter deemed to be urgent, and that of course would be up to the person who is introducing this as to whether they would feel is urgent or not. And it could in fact be something that stems from something that is brought up during the meeting this evening. Or so for the three previous councils that I've sat on, whether it was the mayor, deputy mayor, or in some of those councils, the mayor himself did not chair all of the meetings. They were chaired by individual council members. It was always asked as a question with the chair looking around the table to see if anybody's hands were up. It provides more opportunity for input from council, more opportunity from discussion from council. It is what it says in our procedural bylaw, and I would appreciate it if you would look at new business that way from here on in.
We'll just get some clarity from our clerk, Ms. Preston.
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. To your point, Councillor McConnell, there is a section of new business in the procedure bylaw. I will note that the deeming of urgency is at the discretion of the chair, not the member bringing the matter forward. And that determination is at the chair's sole discretion. A matter under new business is a matter under the agenda, and matters that are deemed urgent may always be brought up at the discretion of the chair, but the agenda is moved during the meeting, which includes the matters of new business, and therefore your interpretation does not match mine as the clerk interpretation of how this bylaw is meant to be intended, and that those motions which were given prior notice may be placed on the agenda by myself or a member at the call of the agenda being carried, or that an item may be referred to future, but that is at the call of the agenda.
Thank you, Ms. Preston. Okay.
No, as the clerk indicated, her interpretation does not match mine.
Well,
And I will be seeking further clarification.
go right ahead.
I will, thank you.
Okay.
It's my right to do so.
And I'm fine with that. So there's no new business. There's no notices of motion, no mayor's proclamation. I assume no period for media questions. So we're going to move into closed session. Motion is that council move into closed session at 7:45 p.m. to discuss matters pertaining to closed session minutes and property sale. Under section 239-2C, under the Municipal Act, acquisition or disposition of land, and under section 239-2K, under Municipal Act, plans and instructions for negotiation, and that the CAO, treasurer, director of administration clerk, economic development officer, and deputy clerk remain in the room. Mover for that, Councillor Burton, seconded by Councillor Ray Young. All in favor? Carrie, thank you. Give us 5 minutes and we'll get started.